Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the RSS with myself, Razi Saleh, and of course the Kuchingite Jason Sim.
Hello.
And it's going to be a bit different this edition because you know what? We've had this conversation, off camera, and we've been talking about like different generations and how everything is. Obviously, I am from Generation X, and you are
Millennial.
you're
Gen Y, I think.
You are from the born in the 80s. I was born in the 70s, and we'll have this conversation about all the other generations that we've had, especially here in Sarawak, and how things have been quite different, and how I think a lot of it has a lot to do with not just generation. People from different generations, but how people are so different in how they deal with stuff. Because I think it's very important moving forward in terms of how we want to see Sarawak, and I will always look at it from that point of view, and how, because it's really important, and we've got like in terms of who are running countries, they're boomers.
Yeah.
And you and I both know, they're boomers, and now we have Gen X, and you have you guys and Gen Z and Alpha moving forward in our generation. The first things first is for you guys. You've seen how it is. I've grown up where I have been around during Taib's time. I think, yeah, I've had, I've had Tun Abdul Rahman, I've had Taib, I've had Tok Nan, I've had obviously and Abang Jo.
Yeah.
So I've gone through that, and I was, an adult, which is so funny because I was an adult throughout all that time. And you guys gone through all similar things, but different age.
We've basically only known Tun M and Tun Type for most of our lives.
Yeah. So in terms of Sarawak, where you would know Tok Nan. Yeah.
And Abang Jo.
Type is like way too old because. I don't think you.
No, we grew up with like Tun Type for a long time.
But you didn't really feel the effects until Tok Nan.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'll say like Type was a big, like Tun M and Tun Type were the like constants.
Oh, so you also felt from Semenanjung as well. Yeah. That's the thing that gets me asking. It's like from here.
Yeah.
When it comes to Sarawak, because obviously I wasn't just there in Semenanjung, but I was more concerned about my work around the world. But politically, I'm not saying I'm surprised, but like that you grew up during that time when you knew Tun M and
I mean
as a Sarawakian. And that's more important.
I mean, for Tun M, like for millennials, I'll say Tun M was like the constant, like during the whole 90s and like 2000s. And then Tun Type, like, I remember when we opened a new wing for our school, like Tun Type officiated the opening. So, I mean,
what school is that?
Lodge.
Oh, okay.
So when you look at the times they've been around, I mean they were the constants.
Much younger. Tun Type lah. It wasn't Tun Type at the time. It was still CM Type.
Yeah. So like the post Type and like Tun M times were like they were I would say that those were the anomalies.
Anomalies. Okay.
Yeah. Like actual change in government, even more so in the federal level. So
when you mean by change in government, what do you mean by that?
Because we were just so used to like the same leaders throughout our lives.
Right.
So there was when Adnan came in like after Tun Type, I mean it affected everybody. Like it definitely touched the nerve with millennials. like the younger generation, because like he was the one that spoke our language, you know. So yeah, that was like real surprising.
What do you mean by speaking your language? What Tunan?
Yeah, I mean, Adnan holds a special place in a lot of Sarawakians. So, I mean, he just came in, and if any political leader, like, you know, put in words what it meant to be Sarawakian, right? Yeah, Adnan was the one who was like really good with his words. So
Oh, no, it's interesting because obviously I as much as I was Sarawakian, I never saw the I suppose the hands-on approach that he had while he was here, because we were looking at from the outside in. As much as I was striking, I was still in Semenanjung and not seeing that. So we didn't see the effects of it.
oh,
So for us, it's like, oh, okay, it's just Tottenham. And of course, I was younger. We sort of know him from a younger age, but it was very different growing up because I was always abroad and looking at it from another point of view, where in Semenanjung politics. But the time that you guys were there, did you feel that you guys were going through a change at the time, because you'd been so used to having Taib around, and then you got Anand Satim there, and for you guys, was it a time where you felt that things could change, or was it going to be something different to start? Because he was saying a lot of stuff where it was just, I would say, was getting Semenanjung upset in that sense.
I mean, I would have said like I was more like politically aware than most at the time, like even for the age. But even then, like I wouldn't have seen like who type successor was going to be. You would have thought like maybe Awang Tengah or somebody else like that. But yeah, as soon as he came in, and then like I mean, he just like brought up like state nationalism to a whole like new level. He just like set up that sentiment, and then it just came at a very good time as well, because like obviously the PM Najib was like in a like really down spot, and especially if it came after that election where like Najib had like when PH was starting to come to the fore. I mean, they just played it beautifully. So whatever happened behind the scenes, whoever like put Adnan there, and for the guy that he was, who like just managed to like speak that language to Sarawakians, who was just like I mean, he came to a Chinese crowd and say like Chinese, they are not pendatang. I mean, just little things like that, right? I mean, everyone loved Adnan, and then I don't know how he would have been if it was like a 5-6 year tenure, but for that little moment that he was here, man, and like I mean, Sarawakians loved Adnan. He just said it, and he knew how to speak Iban, a little bit of Hokkien here, and of course like Bahasa Sarawak, and he was like speaking Bahasa Sarawak in like official functions. I mean, yeah, there was that reawakening. I wouldn't say like he just planted the seed there, but it was that reawakening of state nationalism that even in people in my dad's time, like they felt it was dormant for a long time, and they were around when it was under the British, like they were under like Fairland Sarawak times. So yeah, that was the first time we felt like, oh damn, we're Sarawakians.
No, so the question was, I mean, at the time, again, I reiterate this, like, what you've mentioned before in terms of the state nationalism. That's a very strong, concept to be talking about. The older generation, to you, your parents and all that, how did they feel? Because it was something very different to what they've been used to, where you've had the type era, and now you've got this gentleman, and he was a gentleman politician who suddenly was like putting us to the fore and in the front. How do you see your parents see this? did they see it something that was dangerous or something that was like something to be able to talk about? Because you have to understand, people in Semenanjung don't know this, and suddenly there's this politician who's like putting us to the fore. What were your parents' thoughts, or at least the older generation?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, my parents grew up in the time where, like, they knew what it felt to be Sarawakian. That was apart from being in Malaysia, you know, or being part of that. But I grew up, like, you know, the Tunem's era, full of the songs and propaganda that we saw on TV. Like, yeah, I mean, we all bought into it, you know. And maybe they, you know, people in Semenanjung, they say, yeah, that was a better time, you know. When you grow up, it's like, yeah, we're just another state in Malaysia, and like, you know, yay, we're Malaysians and things like that. The Commonwealth Games, we're all like, woo, you know, like Sawo Biki and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, there's that underlying thing that always kind of bothered us, and it was hard to put in words, you know. And I think for a lot of younger generation, like people like Adnan was like, I don't know if it was for like political reasons or you know, just perfect timing that it just brought it all up. And yeah, it'd be hard to find a Sarawakian that doesn't share that sentiments these days. So I don't know. I mean, like as an older Sarawakian growing up, right? Like, was that identity always distinct? Like for you, like, you know, like a Gen Xer, right? Like Sarawakian, was it like, oh yeah, we're just like a colonized state here, or like, oh, we're just like, you know, I mean, what was that sentiment for that? I can tell you for like the older generations, like dad's parents and up, right? They saw a time where maybe joining Malaysia, like, it could have been, or maybe not a good idea, you know. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the older generation, like my father's generation, they're in the 80s, like not even boomers. They were like, you know, during the war. I mean, he was born during the war, but I think it's very different for them because they were, you know, they've gone through the British colony and being for a small amount of time independent. However, what the history says. You know,
I mean, did he go through the Brooke era? Was he that old? I don't know.
I mean, he was there. He remembered when
Charles Brooke, is it?
No. It was when Tun Juga. We was there when Tun Juga was signing all the stuff. He was a very young man. He said he remembers it, and he said,
not that old.
Said, you know, well. No. You know, he was saying, like, you know, how cheeky Tun Juga was, even at the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's 84 right now, as we speak now in 2024. So, I mean, those guys have gone through. But for me, for them going through this, what we are going through right now, it's so different. We're so unique in the sense that what Abang Joe is you know, his time right now. I'm not saying he's benefiting from it, but he's benefiting from the leaders prior to him who've opened the road or the door for us to be more bold in terms of how we want to get things done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's helped a lot in terms of we've had, you know, because of how the government is having a hung parliament and all that. This is literally a new. It's a new journey for all of us because we've never had a unity government in the past in the past, and this is the first time we're having this kind of, like, you know, you and I both. I'm still going, oh, this is all new. Everything is new from now on. It's all new because, you know, we talked about differences whether it's a coalition government or not. It's not a coalition government because the point is that there isn't a majority. There is a majority, and government says, join me to to have a coalition government. The reason it's called a unity government is because the previous king has said you don't have a majority, none of the parties, which is what happens in British politics. You do not have a majority. The king will go, or the queen at the time goes, okay, I'll give you the chance to work it out between yourselves, layman's language, and form the government. And becomes a unity government because you unify the parties to become the government. You're not agreeing with another party to go, okay, I don't have. See, that's the thing that people are saying. Why didn't have a coalition government? Because the government, the parties at the time, didn't want to be with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, our parties right now. I mean, it was like everyone had different ideals. It's like the Tories will go, you want to be with the raving loony party? Of course not.
Yeah.
You know, we don't mind being with you. We have a coalition. If it meant like 2 seats from the raving loony party to become the majority government, yeah. If they accept to become with each other, of course they didn't accept to become. But if the king says no, form a government because there's no, no
majority.
No majority, then we get, will you work with me just for this? That's different. See? So I go back to you, even during your time, it's like, did you have that kind of thing? You've never had to go through that thing before. We're all going through this now. But in the past, you ask yourself, like, if if we had that kind of choice given to us, and at the time, would you guys be, it's different now, but look back maybe 10, 20 years. I mean, how would you think that, do you think that thing would have happened?
It's weird, like all I've known, I mean, obviously anyone in my age group, even yours as well, we've only known being Malaysian, right? So, yeah, I mean, in terms of the grievances, like it's kind of, it's always been under the surface, but I didn't understand why at first. But obviously when you're a bit older, I mean, you hear people complaining about it, like the older generation complaining about it. And then, as soon as Adnan came out and like sparked that conversation, right? Then I'm like realized, I mean, it's always been there. So I don't know. I mean, then when I started reading more about it and stuff like that, I mean, history and stuff like that. So
you've had a stint where you were working in Semenanjung, and as a Sarawakian, and I've always wanted to ask this, like, as a Sarawakian moving over to the peninsula, and working at a time, and and we mentioned this in the previous episodes where we say that people don't understand where we come from, and this is one thing that I mean, I'll talk about it another time, but focusing on you, it's like moving across to Semenanjung. How did you feel in the first place? And this is just as a Sarawakian moving over to Semenanjung. I mean, what year did you move, and how did you feel the first time you moved into Semenanjung? Because we're supposed to be Malaysia, but we're different.
Yeah.
Then going there, what did you go through? What did you have to go through at the time when you first moved?
I mean, I always thought it was the same country in the first place. So like every time we went there, every time I got there, it's like, it's not that hard of adjustment, but I mean, it just struck you how, especially at the time, how much more developed it was. I mean, it's just hard to avoid. I mean, now being back in Sarawak, it's like, obviously it's a lot better. But I remember growing up in Sarawak during the 90s and stuff, and then going to KL, it's like, I mean, the difference was like obvious, especially like outside of Kuching. So so it wasn't that hard, but I mean, there were little subtle things like, I mean, I would just point out two things. I'll be biased. This is my own personal experience, but it always struck me first how much there's a lot of casual, like racial jokes in the office in Semenanjung. I mean, from my experience, we don't do that as much here. And then another second thing, like I used to take photos of this a lot. I remember graffiti in toilets. I used to take photos of graffiti in toilets in Kuching, and then in West Malaysia. It always struck me how much straight up racist shit that people wrote on toilet doors and stuff like that in West Malaysia. But no, funny enough, not in Sarawak. I mean, they'll give you a phone number of maybe their ex-girlfriend for you to call.
That's what they used to do in my time.
Yeah.
When I go to a public toilet, it was all about you want to have a good time. This and
Yeah,
that.
call this or what.
Yeah.
But I don't see China, baby. Fuck you, China.
Well,
Like.
I never saw that. You see, this is what I'm saying. In my time, and I'm talking about early 90s, all we saw was you want to have a good time, oh, this girl and that and the other. We never saw that. And that's me growing up in I almost said the UK, in KL in the 90s. I saw in public toilets, even if it's like, you want to have a good time with a guy, I'm a guy, but you have a good time. Yeah, we had that kind of thing. But we never had this, I didn't see that. Maybe I went to the wrong toilet. I don't know.
Yeah,
You see, this is what I want to understand. Where did it at which point did it become so racial or so racist? And
yeah, I don't really know. I mean, like,
it was just during school in Semenanjung, because you're coming and we're looking at this from a Sarawakian point of view.
Yeah.
You see, they've always talked about like how racism, all this and that and the other, and it's always been from Semenanjung point of view, because for you living in Semenanjung, that's how it is. But for us, for you coming over, and I grew up somewhere else, but you coming over and you see this, what were your thoughts? How did you feel? Because our state at the time is different, because we never looked at it that way.
Yeah, I didn't know what to feel. I mean, I remember there was like just core memories of like during my time in KL. And then like seeing those graffiti in the on the toilet doors, just the casual like racial jokes in the office. I mean, I'm not saying the intentions were like malicious, but just the fact like, oh yeah, you like Indian this, you like China this, you like Malay this, especially in like a China majority company, and then like those kind of casual jokes. It's like, yeah, I mean, well, maybe I'm like oversensitive. I don't know. Like it just rubbed off like a bit different on me, and yeah, I really didn't know what to make it. But just another memory that struck. I remember saying like during a conversation with friends and my colleagues and people they met, I said, oh yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, you're half this. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm half Iban. I said I'm half China, man. Then I remember my KL Indian friend was saying like, oh, see, that's what I love about you Sarawakians. You say like, oh yeah, I'm half this, I'm half that, I'm half this. And that kind of struck me. And like, I thought, is that like such an uncommon thing? I mean, we have Chindians, we have like all kinds of things over there, right? So I don't know. Maybe I was in the wrong office. Yeah, that really struck me. It's like, is it that weird? Like, just to have this kind of like mixed identity, to have this kind of like to not want to make like this kind of racial jokes all the time as well. But having said that, I've started to see it a lot in the younger generations now, like here in Sarawak as well. But I don't know, maybe my friends were boring,
Sorry, so you were saying that the younger generation, they become more racial or
not racist, like, but racial, like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But more racial.
Yeah.
In what? Why is that? Why do you think that's more prevalent now?
I don't know. Maybe just it's just hard to avoid the influence from like West Malaysia, from like national politics. I mean, we're just not apart as much as we think, you know. I mean, like when people say stuff like, yeah, you know, like this sort like nationalism stuff is just fully driven by like you know non Bumiputras, like basically Chinese, right? I mean, you just can't avoid that kind of conversation. Like, have you been on Twitter? It's toxic as shit. So you know, it is what it is. I mean, I don't think we can like we can't shield ourselves from these things, you know. But I would like to think if we are as good as we say we are, we can maybe change conversation. I don't know.
In terms of like growing up in I suppose the 90s and early 2000s, for you guys is obviously a bit different. But Sarawak at the time, how was it in terms of I obviously going through Taib and Annan and all that, but Kuching. Let's talk about Kuching. Kuching was still very much a small town, and as much as he was talking about the rhetoric about Sarawak and all that, were there changes in structurally or in Sarawak at the time, or was just things were being developed?
I mean, like first of all, the fact that there was even a leadership change, like from type to like someone who who's just not a relation or not anyone else. Like, I mean, just the fact that he stepped down, and it was this new guy who, like, I think no casual would know who he, like, he wasn't even the deputy, like, chief minister or anything like that. It was this guy that came up, and then yeah, he managed to like get the Borneo highway. He managed to go in front of like the big six timber companies and say no more logging. So yeah, he just captured the imagination. It was like really once in a lifetime thing, and it's amazing that all the things that Abanjo is like doing now, like in terms of ideas and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, people really fondly remember that little moment where this guy just sparked like Sarawak nationalism, what it meant to be Sarawakian. I mean, I just remember. I mean, there was a whole lot of quotes that I remember about Adnan, but this like really struck me as well. Like things like when you were talking about May 13, right? The racial riots in West Malaysia. He said like May 13 was a thunder behind the hills. I remember like yeah, it wasn't. This is not a correct quote, but I mean he speaks a lot better than me, of course. But yeah, he was just saying basically like a this thunder noise behind the hills. I mean, it's not related to us at all, nothing to do with us at all. And yeah, little things like that, like really just like touch Sarawakians, like when we're always like being bombarded by May 13 on the TV and stuff like that. I'm like, what does May 13 mean to Sarawakians? I mean, there's this thing that happened like before. Yeah, I mean, we have our share of like problems like a long time, but for this date to have any significance with us, I mean, yeah, just the fact that he said something like this, like, yeah, I mean, we all love Adnan for that. He just lifted that baggage away from like, especially all these kids, all these like Chinese kids who were like, the settle of this baggage, like, yeah, there was this racial riots in Malaysia last time, Chinese versus Malay, and he was like, yeah, May 13 was this hill, there was this thunder across the hill, and then
No, but what's interesting is like, like I said, like May 13 was something not really related to us, and now we talk about August 31st, obviously being the Independence Day, and there's been a lot of and that discourse and discussion about it now. September 16th obviously is Malaysia Day.
Well,
But there's also this I wouldn't say argument, but this conversation where we say if it wasn't for the independence of August 31st, we wouldn't be where we are right now, which is why Hari Kebangsaan, which is what we call it
yeah,
here, rather than Merdeka, 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 is really important, because if it wasn't for August 31st, we wouldn't get
our independence.
independence. So that's a rhetoric that's been said now.
Yeah.
But how would you feel about? How do you feel about that?
Gosh, I mean, I really don't want to get my facts wrong on historical facts wrong on stuff like this, but I mean, yes, like it was that Merdeka movement that that was supposed to start with Malaya and then like continue on Sabah Sarawak to complete this Malaysia project. But I mean, that whole project in the first place, you could argue was even dubious in the first place. You could argue, I mean, it was that whole British plan to like put this these territories together like during that Cold War period, right? I mean, against Indonesia and Philippine claims and doing all that, and we had our own. Even prior to being under the British, like we didn't want to be under British in the first place. We wanted to maintain the Brooke Rule as well. So whether that is like into consideration, yeah. I mean, Malaysia has a really, really messy history, like what it got put together. So I don't know. I mean, they started Merdeka in Malaysia movement, but should we have been independent from the start? I mean, like after the British left, after the Japanese left, I mean, post Brooke Rule, should we have been an independent nation? I don't know. We were a sovereign country for a long, long time, before that. So do we have much say? I mean, yeah, the Cobalt Commission. I mean, how much of it was legit? Was it legit in the first place? I don't know. But I mean, here we are. This is how we are, and yeah. Assuming it was legit, we all had these conditions to join this federation. Are those met as well? So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things to consider. I mean, Malaysia is a work in progress.
And saying that, I mean, obviously the spiel that you just went through is something that. Do you think that's something that's a lot of people in your generation feel as well? Or moving forward now that we have, especially with the unity government, and having a lot more say in what we do, and now we have a lot more. I wouldn't say in terms of how we look at the federal government and how they're a lot more. I don't know what the word is. I think they're a lot more conducive to what we do.
I don't know. It's funny. Gen X is a funny generation because Gen X. People always say Gen X is that generation that.
Suddenly we're talking about Gen X.
Yeah, I mean, people always say Gen X is the generation people forget. Not
they
think
always
about.
Forget about.
Yeah,
always forget
it's the middle child generation. Right?
Yeah, well, I am a middle child.
Yeah, so
everyone forgets about us.
I mean, but when you talk to boomers, they have this strong sense of sentiment.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, so they have this strong sense of what it means to be Sarawakian, and then
I get told that all the time.
And then maybe the younger generation, we used to be stronger, Malaysian advocates. But then again, because we were only there was only projected us since we were younger, and then now that we're older, I'm like, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. So, I don't know. I mean, how do you see? Throwing back that question at you, as a Gen Xer, how do you look at it?
Well, because we actually grew up where obviously with the old generations telling us, my father always telling me how Sarawak was great, blah blah, this and that, the other, and then I've got the younger generation you need to move forward, and not just my generation, but the old generation who's gone through what they call the stuff that they're so used to the status quo.
Yeah.
And when we're not saying we try and fight it, we try and change it. And then we see your generation actually, going through, when Annan, the late, Arwas, Annan Satin came out, and this, we were like, wow, this is something different.
Yeah.
But we were skeptical as Gen X. We were like, how can you change stuff for such a short time when we're so used to what we've seen before?
Yeah.
We're not saying that he's wrong, but we're just saying like, okay, I don't know whether he can pull it off.
Yeah.
And inevitably, that thing happened. Maybe because we were like, oh, we were right. But what he did sparked very much something different in your generation that we didn't know because we didn't see it.
Yeah.
And then boom. And then now where we have very much an emboldened premier, who changed his name from chief minister to premier on his, whatever call that was given to and the younger generation, the Gen Z, who are seeing him as the leader, and us going, hang on a minute, this guy is promising everything, but is he going to do it? And it's not skepticism from our side, because it's like, I'm from the generation like, I don't know whether he'll do it or not. But at the same time, do we disregard him and go, oh, he's just saying stuff because, he's just wants to be popular? Or is he really doing stuff and saying stuff that is going to change? Because we now have the sovereign fund, we have this and that and the other, we have the hydrogen, but nothing is concrete yet, right? So do we, as the older generation, go, is he correct, or are we going to be skeptical? Because that's a big question, because we are the guys who will, at the end of the day, will help him believe in his dream, or he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put on my journalist hat on, and I'll say clearly a lot of things has changed. And what state nationalism, like what Sarawak, autonomous Sarawak look like, I think it will differ to a lot of people. And people generally, and I'll say the Sarawak like state identity, like it's across the board, it's really strong. But the affiliation to like the federation, I'll say it will differ a lot, and mostly along ethnic lines. I don't want to elaborate more from that, but that is like what I'll say from my like putting on my journalism hat, Some races are more affiliated.
If you're putting your journalism hat, you got to be like upfront about it. You can't be, because what you just said just now was very, like sounded like a politician.
Oh. I mean, I'll say some groups are more, a lot more happy to be in a federation than a lot others, where I'm not saying the rest are like not loyal at all, but I mean,
very sneaky. That's a very politician kind of answer.
I mean, I could go to jail for this answer, so yeah, I'm trying to cover my ass here.
Being a very safe journalist.
I'm really trying to be like objective here, Yeah. So, yeah, like clearly.
Objective. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
safe.
I mean, if we were to do like a
no holds barred is different. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, or like a probably blind referendum, or things like that. Yeah, I suspect I'll be correct, but yeah. But having said that, I mean, if you were to ask me like how I feel about like being in the federation, I mean, I think Malaysia is like it's a marriage, I mean, you could argue like a arranged marriage, you could argue.
Well, it is.
Yeah, but it's a marriage, and maybe clearly there were a lot of problems in the marriage, and divorce is always an option, but it's a really the last option. Clearly.
Messy.
Yeah, it's a messy option, and yeah, for the situation we're in, it is a very messy option. So yeah, let's just make the marriage work as best as we can. But the wise Sarawak, like, has to have a lot more say than before.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, is that something that came about during because of the what happened during the elections, or is it something that that
I mean,
could have happened in the past prior Abang Joe's time?
mm,
Is it
uh,
because the federal government now is weaker
well, I mean,
because of the unity government?
yeah, I mean, this sentiment, like, I think existed long before. I mean, you could argue why the local parties has been winning for a long time before even, like, it started collapsing, like, post Najib. Just the fact is like, yo, we're not gonna vote for this random, like, West Malaysian parties. That's why UMNO wasn't here. You could say that was a good or bad thing, whatever, but the sentiment was always there. And now we're like, okay, fine, we're sharing the government. I think for a lot of younger generation, I'm like, okay, fine, let's make this federation work, but yeah, let's carve this little piece, of, like, sanctuary for us. You can have your side of the ocean, we can have ours. I mean, those sides, people in
That
Semenanjung.
sounds very dictatorial. Like, you have yours, I have mine. We'll take care of ourselves.
I mean, yeah, that's what autonomy is, right? And if I would go even further, like, I think all states should have, like, a lot of autonomy, but that's another subject. But yeah, for West Malaysians, they want to fight on what goes on over there. I mean, yeah, that's their fight. Let's carve our little piece of sanctuary here with our, how we see fit to let things run. I think that's what, like, a lot of younger generations would think. But yeah, real life is just a lot more messier, right?
Well, what do you think we should just carve our little face, a little bit here, instead of saying, hey, come on, let's share that out with the rest of the country?
I mean, we're not. I'm not talking so much about, like, resources and things like that. But yeah, I mean, just like legislation, way of life, in terms of restrictions and things like that. Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna impose that on you. Don't impose that shit on us. We're gonna just live this way. We want to have less restrictions in this certain way. We might want to have restrictions in this kind of way, but I mean, that's what autonomy is all about, right? And this includes Sabah as well. So yeah, I mean, that's how we look at it at this time. Whether that's realistic, whether they'll even let that happen. I mean, if they get their shit together and then they all vote the same party, right? I mean, it's going to be a lot harder unless we have, like, that promise, 1/3 of, like, votes, 1/3 of seats, right? That we're supposed to have in Singapore. So yeah, I mean, but don't we all just want to get along? I mean, why not let us just be this test case of, like, oh yeah, what if we just do it that other way? I mean, if we fuck up, then they can say, I told you so, I mean, it's not like they cared about us that much before, right? So, yeah.
I mean, ideally, if something like that were to happen, it would be good for, obviously, Peninsula and all that, and as much as we have our own hang-ups here and our own problems, at the same time we do follow the trends of what's happening in Semenanjung, Peninsula Malaysia. But the like I said, moving forward, when we do have things that are very unique to us, and we have stuff that are modern, we're leading in terms of our businesses, how we're doing stuff. Do we feel that we need to be able to keep up or listen, apart from the politics, and I disregard, because the politics will always be there, in terms of our trends, how we move stuff. And you see with social media now, it's very different. It's not just about Semenanjung anymore. It's about what's happening, and even more so what's happened now with Sukma.
Yeah.
Sukma opened up a lot of eyes of especially the young, and I mentioned this, the younger generation, who's competed in Sukma, they see Sarawak from a different point of view. So for you, does that mean that we're a lot more in terms of how we are as Malaysian, the the younger generation a lot more understanding in how our people are, because you have to understand, this is the first time we've had everyone come over here, not just to Kuching but all over Sarawak. This is the first time that they've seen Sarawak from this point of view through Sukma. We've never had anything like this prior to this.
I mean, I think as much as possible, Sarawak should just do things the way they want to do, and if it sets a good example, it should set a good example. I mean, and if it's if it fails, we are that test case that fails. We're this it's like a free trade zone or things like that. It's you got this experimental zone, and then okay, people say just having a Malay syllabus is the best for us, and then this faction says being in Asia is the good way. So I don't know. How do you settle the argument? Okay, fine. Let's just let Sarawak just do that, and then we do this, and then let's let the results speak for itself. And then if people want to go against that result, then they're just going against I don't know, just for whatever reason. But I mean, you have the example in front of you. It's okay, we shouldn't put UAC because it result in this. Okay, let's let this one do UAC. Let's things like that. I'm sure there are a lot of other things like that, and then we'll just see it out. But if it turns out okay, maybe different solutions fit better for different demographics, different states. Let us go. Just have all-out state autonomy, maybe Indonesia, or I mean, even in China, it's amazing how autonomous, their different provinces are. So maybe that's the new model of being a federal system. But let us just let's do how we see fit.
Well, for a final question, I mean, we're seeing advancements now with obviously hydrogen, with Kuts and all that as a Sarawakian moving forward, and how we want to see to be seen to be more progressive, or as progressive in comparison to Semenanjung or Peninsula Malaysia. However, as much as we are at the same size as Semenanjung, we only have 3 million people in our state, in our territory. You have to do the maths. Kuala Lumpur has 9 million right now, as in 2024. We have 3 million in the state. How do you see us trying to move that ahead in terms of of our population? Because you want to split that up even more. How many are from the younger generation?
Yeah, I mean, the way things are about to be set up, it's hard to not see foreign or even West Malaysian talent coming in. I mean, who's gonna fill up all those roles? I'm not saying I want to or I don't want to, but the way things are set up, it's just impossible.
Yeah. So do you see ourselves like Singapore? How Singapore did, but we have landmass.
Yeah. I mean, do we have a choice? We could bring talent in. Maybe we have to sort out our visa situation, how long they can last. But if people are worried about how long they can stay here, we might be able to do something in the visa situation. But would they want to come here if they're just told that they can only stay here every 2 years and have to renew? I mean, it's a difficult situation. So we need talent. I mean, immigration is always a sensitive topic, right? I mean, even as Sarawakians, as a Sarawakian, do I want it flooded with foreigners or like even West Asians who don't understand our way of life. And I mean, we've all lived in countries with like, you know, now they're going through, they say like UK and stuff like that, going through like immigration problems. Like, do we want that? I don't know. But for the things that we're doing and the talent that we need, do we have a choice? Like, hopefully there are like Malaysians that like align to our values, but I mean, how are you gonna vet for things like that, you know?
Exactly. And on that note, we'd love to be able to carry on this conversation, and obviously we'll have this conversation offline. But if you do have any questions of the topic that we've had, which has been quite informative to say the least, do let us know. Send us an email. But from myself, Rashid Saleh, and Jason Sim, this has been the RSS. We'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.